Because let me tell you something. If every single member of my family were killed by a government, if my neighborhood was razed by a foreign military, that would radicalize me too. It's common sense. But you know what? I almost feel like that's the whole game that Israel is playing as we speak.
Anna Kasparian and Aaron Maté are a force to be reckoned with. They're on the Piers Morgan Show with former Secretary of State Mark Kimmett and Shabbos, doing what they do best, educating and silencing the rubbish this Zionist panel splits out. Enough waffling. Let's take a look.
Makes this fatuous argument about, well, this should have happened long ago, but President Trump didn't want to do it long ago. It's ridiculous. Having been involved in diplomatic negotiations when I was in government,
it's literally confirmed.
Sometimes it is simply that the moment is not there. All the pieces need to fall in place, whether a year ago, Hamas was not ready or Israel was not ready. And it's an easy argument because...
Are you saying that an Israeli negotiator who was part of the negotiations is just making it up? Or is that what you're saying? So the Israeli negotiator who was in on these negotiations, are you saying that he's making it up?
What I'm saying is, I'm not sure Hamas agreed with him, but the fact remains is it's an unprovable assertion, and one data point
accepted the
doesn't
ceasefire
prove your argument.
Even during the Biden administration.
Okay. I hope that makes you feel better.
No, but tell me, I just want to know, it doesn't make me feel better, actually. I just want to know, do you think the Israeli, who Aaron Maté referenced earlier, who said that Hamas had accepted the ceasefire deal even under Biden. Thank you, Aaron. Under Biden, even Biden rejected it. The biggest obstacle to that ceasefire, which could have been achieved literally over a year and a half ago, okay, was Israel. They did not want to stop the war in Gaza. And in fact, they continue raiding terror on Palestinians in the West Bank. Like, do we live in a fantasy world? Like, what are we doing here? Can we at least acknowledge reality? And if you love Trump, you love Trump. Go ahead and love Trump as much as you want. I don't really care. But I want the facts to remain. I want the facts to be aired on this broadcast instead of pretending as though Trump has been like this great peacemaker.
Anna, you don't have the diplomatic record to stand behind your assertions. I'll leave it at that.
Do you have a diplomatic record? What's your diplomatic record?
This isn't
What's
about
your diplomatic record. Tell me.
Among other things, I negotiated the end of piracy operations that were off the coast of Somalia, which saved hundreds of innocent people from being kidnapped.
Some of the country we're still bombing. We've been bombing for like decades.
Okay.
Can I say something, Piers? Listen.
All right.
Mark says sometimes the moment is simply not there. The only logical response would be, well, how many more people did you want killed before you stepped in and did something about it? During Trump's speech, he said Netanyahu would call and ask for weapons he'd never heard of. He would make them and he would use them well. This single statement alone is enough to suggest the priority was not peace, it was military escalation. Mark then goes on to say the pieces need to fall into place. This isn't a jigsaw puzzle. The only pieces, or shall I say pockets, that needed to be filled was Trump's, and looks like a $400 million jet from Qatar and $100 million from Miriam Adelson was enough to make that happen.
But to go back and suggest that within days or weeks of October the 7th, what Israel should have done to an enemy wedded to its destruction, who has repeatedly, since the attacks, and we're going to keep doing this, would not have attacked with great force, everyone would have done that.
Here's my problem with your argument is that you're presuming two things I think are false. One is that Israel is a normal country like other states, and two, that there's parity here. Israel is not a country living in peace with its neighbors, and the Palestinians just disrupted all that on October 7th. Israel was waging on October 6th one of the most brutal and longest running military occupations in the world, which it refused to end, which it had multiple opportunities to do. And contrary to the revisionism we've heard in this interview from people like Shabbos, that the Palestinians were offered this great peace deal and they turned it down. No, Israel's never risen to the level of offering Palestinians the absolute minimum, which is a contiguous state in the West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem, which, by the way, as I pointed out, Hamas has accepted. Hamas previously
Arafat was offered it. Arafat was offered an unbelievably good deal. Historically, people will say that was the moment. Bill Clinton, I've interviewed Bill Clinton several times about this, and he's absolutely clear, as are the Israelis, that deal was on the table and Arafat walked away.
Piers, listen, we can go into that record. There's a great new book by Robert Malley I have here. He worked for Bill Clinton. He was his negotiator. And he points out that what Bill Clinton said is just not true. Palestinians were never offered that. That's why Shlomo Ben-Ami, who was Ehud Barak's foreign minister, who you spoke to earlier, who was at Camp David when that so-called generous offer was made, Shlomo Ben-Ami said, if I were Palestinian, I would have rejected Camp David as well, because contrary to all the spin, including from people like Bill Clinton, Palestinians were never offered a contiguous state in the West Bank and Gaza. They were offered a Bantustan state where they could live in little cantons surrounded by major Israeli settlement blocks that make Palestinian life impossible. And even Hamas, if you look at their charter, they revised their charter. I wish they'd been even more forthcoming than they were, but the fact is they were more accommodating on the issue of the two-state solution than any Israeli across the spectrum. And by the way, on the issue of Netanyahu, Ehud Barak said earlier that Israel's not Netanyahu. Okay, it's a nice message, but look at the polls. Most Israelis support ethnic cleansing.
Piers says that Arafat was offered an unbelievable good deal. Clearly he doesn't know what he's talking about. The Camp David deal that Aaron pointed out and rightly suggested would have left Palestinians with literally fragments of areas surrounded by settler colonies. The other argument was, well, under international law, displaced Palestinians have a right to return to their homeland. Even today, that right still stands for the Palestinians. So why should they accept some poxy deal, leaving them with pockets of areas to live in, when under international law, they have the right to return to their homes, wherever that might be?
That Israel carried out these military operations in Gaza, destroyed the Gaza Strip, which, what do you think that does? That multiplies Hamas militants. That radicalizes people. Because let me tell you something. If every single member of my family were killed by a government, if my neighborhood was raised by a foreign military, that would radicalize me too. It's common sense. But you know what? I almost feel like that's the whole game that Israel is playing as we speak. Because at the end of the day, it's an expansionist project. They want to steal the land. And I guarantee you, this isn't over. They're going to continue pursuing land theft, not just in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. That's currently happening right now as we speak, while everyone is giving, Netanyahu and Trump plaudits for their peace deal. There is no peace as long as we continue supporting the terroristic welfare state of Israel. They've leveled the Gaza Strip. There's nothing for these Palestinian people to go home to. And you want to talk about how the Palestinians and Hamas have rejected offers for a two-state solution. After the clean break memo, after Netanyahu made abundantly clear that he would not allow for the formation of a Palestinian state, after the fact that every effort at creating a two-state solution was undermined by the Israelis. They don't want a two-state solution. The Likud's founding charter pursues the greater Israel project. They want that land. They're going to pursue that land. They're going to steal that land. And look, I am hoping that there will be lasting peace. But I'm also smart enough to pay close attention to what's going on in Israeli media. And based on what's being said in Israeli media, it does not appear as though there's going to be a lasting ceasefire. And I'm worried about that. So look, Shabos can sit here and lie about how, it's all Hamas's fault and the wonderful, precious, innocent Israeli government has only done the right thing and only the right thing. But that's just not true. They have committed war crimes. The IDF has committed atrocities that I never thought I would ever see in my lifetime. I thought humans had evolved past that kind of disgusting war crime behavior.
There is nothing for the Palestinians to go home to, and even when they attempt to go home, we've already seen 7 Palestinians shot and killed. Aaron and Anna are both right. It's always been about the greater Israel project. I hope the ceasefire lasts. I hope the correct people are involved in facilitating the rebuild of Gaza. When I say the correct people, that does not include people like Tony Blair. He's the opposite of correct. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Support me by liking and subscribing, and I'll see you all on the next video. Peace out.